You are listening to the Maple Footy Podcast. This is the unofficial football podcast of the North. I'm your host, Sam Little. Find me at official Sam Little on Instagram. There's nothing left to say except for sit back, enjoy, and welcome to the show.
Hello, yes. Welcome back to another episode of the Maple Footy Podcast and Euro semifinal recap time. We are rapidly approaching July 14th, which means we have to do the semifinal recap. The two semifinals were, of course, Spain and France, and then the other one was England, Netherlands, and yes, I do have a little bit to say about each of them. No, neither of them were particularly great games that I enjoyed watching. The more this tournament goes on and the less underdog type teams are in it, the less enjoyable I kind of have found it to be, because the underdog teams just kind of go out there and just go for it, whereas these kind of more favored teams will just kind of go out there and, I don't know, park the bus, I guess, or bore you to death. I don't know. Yeah, they just weren't. I mean, I'm sure there are people that love this style of game. Not for me, quite frankly, but we will start off this recap with Spain and France, the first of the two semifinals played, and we'll start out with France. Yeah, because they lost. We'll go with France. So France's tournament does come to an end here, and disappointing, to say the least. I know they did make the semifinal, so on paper, that is kind of I wouldn't say successful because they were favored to win this, but definitely not the worst tournament that you're going to see from them on paper. But if you actually watch them, you kind of know that they weren't great at all throughout this tournament. And I mean, it took them until this game to finally score from open play, which is an issue when you look at their attack and the talent that they have. When you've scored one goal from open play in 6 games, your other goals were own goals and a penalty. Yeah, no, that's not great. But they did make it to the semifinal, so obviously I guess there's something to that, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, just a pretty lackluster game from France, which, I mean, if you watch them throughout the tournament, you probably expected that. They just didn't look good, to be honest with you. Not this game, not throughout the tournament, so not really surprising that they don't look good here. And yeah, I mean, credit to them. In that first 15 minutes, it looked like the France that we were all kind of expecting from this tournament. They were pressing. They were making Spain kind of have to ask a lot of questions defensively. And then inevitably, France kind of scored relatively early on in the 9th minute. Great assist from Kylian Mbappe to Koulibaly. And you kind of are thinking, maybe this is the France we were promised. Maybe they've been holding off all tournament, and now's the time they're going to show us what they can do. No, it wasn't. Essentially, come probably, I would say, the 15th minute, it was all Spain. Then Spain kind of get 2 goals in relatively quick succession. And really from there, it never really looked like Spain were going to lose this. France didn't create a whole ton until that second half, where they kind of just wasted any chance they did get. So we'll kind of do a little bit of player-by-player type thing. Once again, not much to really say about this France side, apart from they were very incredibly disappointing. So in goal, Magnan, I actually thought he had a pretty good tournament. One of the few French players I feel like can kind of leave with his head a little bit held high. He wasn't at fault for either of the goals here. There's no shot any keeper in the world saves that Yamal strike. And the second goal from Dani Olmo, I think his defense just totally lets him down. And after that, he didn't have a whole ton to do. Spain kind of just saw out the game, knew what they were doing, and they did it well. Right back, Jules Koundé, I thought he was very, very unimpressive, if I'm being honest. That second goal, he kind of whacks at it really awkwardly. Instead of clearing it, he essentially ensures that it goes into the back of his own net. Not the best from him, and offensively, I still think he's extremely just out of his depth, offensively at least. I think he had a solid tournament, but yeah, this game was not a great showcase for him. Upamecano and Saliba looked pretty pedestrian. They didn't look outstanding, if you were to ask me. And then left back was I said the wrong Hernandez last episode. I called him Lucas. It is Theo. I know that it's Theo, but I got them. I guess in my brain I had a little bit of a brain fart, I guess. But yeah, it is Theo Hernandez on the left, and once a decent tournament from him, but nothing that you would go, man, this guy's one of the best left backs in the world, which I think he probably is at this moment. But yeah, he didn't look great. He had a great chance in and around the 70th minute that fell to him. He could have taken a touch, taken it to his left foot, and taken the shot with his more favored side, but instead he just kind of slashes at it with his right, goes well over, and that just kind of summarized his day. Just nothing was really going his way. Like, he wasn't awful, but anything that he tried to do just really didn't come off, if that makes sense. He was getting forward a little bit, but not a whole ton. Not to the effect that he would want to. And then when he did, it wouldn't work out, whether it was like a wayward cross or like that shot where he rifles it over. But yeah, just not the best outing for him, but not the worst. Looking at the midfield, before I start, I can't believe Antoine Griezmann didn't start this match, because you saw last game when he was taken off when they were playing, who did they play in the quarterfinal? Portugal. Shows how much I remember from that game, how much I wanted to fall asleep. Portugal. When they played Portugal, Antoine Griezmann was taken off in the 65th minute, I think it was. And from there, France looked a totally different side, and not for the better. So I figured Deschamps would go, okay, yeah, let's learn from that and play Griezmann. No, benched him. Just benched him. Adrian, sorry, just laughing about Rabiot, because I have a few things to say about him. Adrian Rabiot retains his place in the 11 after stepping out last game due to suspension. And once again, I figured that Camavinga did enough to get the nod in the starting 11. He did not, apparently. Rabiot was back in, and his mouth got him in trouble before the game even started. Says that Yamal needs to do more to reach the Euro final. Don't know why he's picking a fight with a 16-year-old kid, but yeah, says that he needs to do more to reach the final. And then Adrian Rabiot gets a front row seat to Yamal, essentially, basically starting the fall of this French side in this tournament, as Rabiot doesn't close him down quick enough. I think he definitely had time to go in and close him down, but kind of just watches Yamal just take an unreal shot. And yeah, sometimes poetic justice is really funny, and I thought it was really funny in this case, because why are you making that comment fully knowing you're about to play this kid who has been very good this tournament, and then you make that comment, and then he immediately shuts you up and then sends you packing. So, I mean, it looks good on him, honestly. Why are you making that comment? And then if you're going to make that comment, you have to back it up on the pitch, and he didn't all tournament. I thought it was a terrible tournament from him, and I don't know how he was in the starting lineup. I don't see what he offered this French side. I don't see what he did better than Camavinga. Just a mind-boggling choice to put him back into 11, and an even more mind-boggling choice as to why he would say what he said. And in the end, Yamal does get the last laugh, and credit to Yamal for, after the game, immediately yelling into a camera, "Speak now," obviously in Spanish though. And that to me is very funny, and that's the shithousery I look forward to in games like this. Look at the midfield. Tchouaméni, once again, I don't think covered himself in glory that day. Wasn't terrible on the day, but just kind of average. And I think that kind of sums up and is the main takeaway from this French side. They weren't great. They were just average throughout this tournament. And he was just average, once again, taking those weird long shots that never came off this tournament. Maybe he was thinking he could run back that England quarterfinal in the World Cup when he took a long shot, and it was a great goal. But yeah, it just never worked out, never came off. He kind of really struggled to deal with the Spanish press, and yeah, just couldn't really keep hold of possession, couldn't really break up play. his passing was a bit off. He didn't look super comfortable. So, yeah, just not a great day for him. I do rate him really highly, but yeah, but not really his tournament. And once again, that's not really a knock against him because every French player kind of had not that tournament. Look at N'Golo Kanté. His tournament started out great, but these last 2 games have not been his best performances. I mean, he was hooked around the, 60th minute as they put on Camavinga and Griezmann. So it wasn't his best performance either. I thought he had a strong tournament, but this just wasn't his game. Didn't look like he could cope with Rodri, as usually it's Kanté that is shutting down the star midfielder of the other team, but this time it was the other way around, as Kanté was kind of just totally shut down. And obviously Deschamps thought so as well, pulled him off, and that was his tournament done and dusted. Then looking at Ousmane Dembele, I don't have a whole ton to say about him. I honestly didn't even know he was on most of the time. He wasn't really involved. So that's not the most in-depth breakdown you'll ever hear of a player. So there you go. Koulibaly, kind of same as Dembele. He did get his goal, and then once again, you wouldn't have known he was on. I mean, I do think he's an improvement on Thuram, who I thought had a not great tournament. And Koulibaly does get the only French goal from open play this tournament. So kudos to him. I guess that's a feather in the cap, right? And then look at Kylian Mbappe. Looked like he could have sent this game to extra time in the 85th minute when he broke free and puts the ball over the bar. And that, once again, not to sound like a broken record, just sums up this French tournament. Just never really looked like they were fully in it. And then you get the chance to your star player who you would bet your house on putting away that chance, and then he doesn't. Now they're out. And that's really all there is to it. Hopefully they can dust themselves off before the World Cup. They're a very talented squad, but maybe it's time to look for a new managerial replacement. Zinedine Zidane, potentially. That's just me spitballing, obviously. But yeah, just a lackluster tournament for the French, and now we don't have to talk about them anymore. We can talk about Spain. In my opinion, the best team this tournament, and I think a very well-earned place into this final, as they, like I said, they've looked the best team since match week 1 and haven't really looked back. I mean, the moment that they scored that second goal, you kind of knew it was over, and I think that's a testament to how good this Spanish side is. They get those goals, they get those moments, and then they see the game out, and just professional, really, just professional in every sense of the word. And yeah, definitely a well-earned spot in this final. Unai Simon, to me, it could be a weak link going into the final. He always looks a little bit shaky when the ball is at his feet, and sometimes has these moments of madness where it looks like it could be a routine save, but he makes it look a bit harder than it should have been. And so that's kind of something to keep an eye on going into the final. If he's tested a whole ton by the likes of Harry Kane, Jude Bellingham, if Cole Palmer gets on, Saka, and anybody else, really, I think it's just something to keep an eye on, because to me, he's kind of like I said, a little bit of the weak link. And their defense, I thought their fullbacks were sound. Marc Cucurella, who I'm not the biggest fan of, has had a great tournament. Has probably been the left back of the tournament. He's been very, very good, very sound. And, I mean, he's keeping out Grimaldo, who I figured this would have been his tournament to start and be the starting left back. But no, Cucurella has looked a starting left back and has really proven me wrong, as he's looked great. Looking at their defense, their center backs, Laporte and Nacho, once again, just sound. I don't know why Laporte is wasting what's left of his prime years in the Saudi League. Like, that should be a move that you make towards the twilight of your career, not when you're like 30, or when he made that move, I think he was 28, 29. So a bit of a shame that we're not seeing him play at the top level in Europe. But yeah, a sound performance from him and Nacho. Didn't really look, outside of the goal at least, that France scored, didn't really look like they were ever going to let another one in. And then looking at Jesus, the last remaining man of like that Spanish golden generation from 16, 14, and 12 years ago. Just did that quick math in my head. Yep. But yeah, I mean, he steps in for Carvajal, who I assume will get back into the lineup in the final. But he stepped in, once again, looked sound. I mean, he's a veteran. He knows what he's doing, and he's still a solid player. Their midfield, I think, has been the best of the tournament. Fabian Ruiz and Rodri have both been unbelievable, and I mean, either one of them could genuinely be given player of the tournament. I'm not sure anybody would bat an eye. I think that Ruiz, like I've said so many times, passes just cut grass. He, for a pretty big guy, moves very quickly, and he moves the ball around very quickly. His distribution is great, and he's popped up with a couple of big goals for them this tournament. It looks sound defensively too. I mean, he's looking the complete package right now. And I mean, look at Rodri. I mean, what more can be said about this guy that hasn't been said? I mean, genuinely, if he won the Ballon d'Or, it's not like it wouldn't be earned, right? Like he could be a viable Ballon d'Or contender, like truly. I know that they usually give it to like a goal scorer, but the way that this guy just controls the tempo of a game can kill an opposition, and then can also like reinvigorate the play style for Spain. It's truly just like, wow, like we're watching a great midfielder at work here. Dani Olmo as well, another potential contender for tournament MVP. He's stepped in at times, but today, this game was really a moment for him to show why he's a deserved starter with or without a Pedri injury. Hopefully Pedri gets well very soon, as I might add. And then, I mean, 3 goals, 2 assists. He hasn't even started every game, so that's pretty impressive to be getting. Scores again today. Scores ultimately the winner today. Great. Just the way he took that ball out of the air, took it away from the French defender, and then just rifles a shot. Looked amazing, and that number 10 is looking really good on him. And I mean, and I saw a quote from Dani Olmo. I guess they were doing like a pre-match like interview type thing to hype up the final, and he said in this interview, "I kept Harry Kane's trophy curse going in Germany, and I'm not done yet." Because Dani Olmo, of course, plays in the Bundesliga. And so that quote is either going to age like, wow, that's the coldest quote I've ever heard after the final, or, oh my gosh, that aged like milk. So just some of that stuff is what I really like to see a little bit. Hopefully he backs it up more than Adrian Rabiot did. So, we'll see, I guess. But yeah, no, just having a very good tournament from Dani Olmo, and has stepped in and up anytime Spain have called for him. So more of that in the final, they will hope. And more of this in the final, that Yamal screamer. Because for a 16-year-old to do that in a European Championship semifinal is absolutely absurd. Especially given the fact that he was called out before the game to do more to reach the final, as if those 3 assists that he's provided isn't enough. To then score from 20-25 yards out and just made it look effortless. To score like that is absurd, and I mean anybody of any age would be proud of that. Like the 34-year-old like journeyman striker would be absolutely pleased with that. So for you to be 16 years old and do that is absurd. Like, that's insane. His overall play was great too. I mean, he looks so effortless on the ball and just always willing to take on a man, create a chance. When he kind of cuts in on that left foot, almost at the edge of the 18-yard box, and then like dinks in one of those like lofted crosses, he's quickly starting to become just such an entertaining player to watch. And hopefully this form carries out we'll see just an absolutely great career from him. And looking at his wing partner, Nico Williams, once again, such an entertaining player to watch. It was kind of a quieter game for him today, but that was really his first game where you went, he hasn't had a great impact today. So, I mean, like, once again, just super entertaining, but yeah, not his day. And Alvaro Morata, kind of same thing, didn't really have the chances to convert, but I mean, he did what he needed to do, was decent, and for Spain, you're going to want him to be on his A game going into the final against England. And speaking of England, let's talk about that other semifinal, because it feels like there's a lot to talk about in that semifinal. Ooh, where do we even begin? Yeah. I don't even know where to begin, because if this England team wins this European Championship, I think it is an indictment on the sport today as to how poor it potentially is, because they have been awful to watch. They have not performed well. They have looked second best in a lot of their games at times, and have had moments of magic that have really bailed them out, and to that extent have had the ref bail them out, especially against the Netherlands. And if they win, I think it just shows that this ugly, boring, terrible brand of football is the way that we're going to be going, and we already have been heading towards it, but this will kind of, I feel like, be like that cementing thing of, so just park the bus and wait for a moment of magic to happen, and then that's it. So I'm not a massive fan of the way they play. I'm not a massive fan that they're in the final, because I don't think they deserve to be there. Once again, another super easy draw to the final, mixed with a very favorable calls from the referees, and you have a recipe to just really ruin what could be a great tournament. And yeah, just I'm not a fan that they're in the final, as you can really tell. So we'll look at England first. Oh, man. Just that penalty. I can't get over that penalty. I think it's a disgraceful call. I think it's absolutely absurd that it's even looked at to be a penalty. Denzel Dumfries, his foot is as high as Harry Kane's. Harry Kane has kicked him, and then Harry Kane has made a meal of it, as he always does. One of the parts of Harry Kane's game that has always disgusted me is he will make the most of anything in the box. And for a country that kind of prides themselves, this is a purely footballing, by the way, a country that prides themselves as the big tough guys, they go down more than anyone in this tournament. Every single touch on them, they are down, rolling around, looking for a foul. And then when they do get the foul, or when they don't get the foul, they're immediately back up and ready to play. I think it's disgusting. It's a terrible way to play the game. I know it's how it's played now, but I'm not a fan of it, and it should never, ever, ever, ever be a penalty. But this referee, he has been banned in the past for match fixing, so should we really be surprised with that caliber of ref that he would give a penalty like that? And yeah, I just think it's terrible, and it has literally cost the Netherlands their tournament. I think it's awful. I really do think it's awful. And I mean, like I said, the fact this England team's in the final is just purely, it's I can't believe it. But, we'll see what they do in the final. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they go and win it all now, as Spain are the favorites and have been the best team, and when do they ever win? And England have been terrible, and so it would just make sense that they win, kind of in a twist of fate kind of way. But let's do like a mini player by player breakdown. Jordan Pickford, one of the most overrated goalkeepers I've ever seen. People get behind this guy during every single international tournament, and I think he's just so blatantly average that I can't believe people rate him as highly as they do. Kyle Walker, once again, looked off the pace. He's not a great defender. It is his pace that really bails him out a lot of the time. John Stones and Mark Gerke, in all fairness, I thought actually were quite good and have both had pretty good tournaments. So nothing bad to say there. But Kyle Saka, definitely not the performance that he put up against Switzerland. I thought he was great against Switzerland. Here he was pretty much a non-factor. Looking at Kieran Trippier, once again, not great, pretty much a non-factor. Gets hooked at halftime for Luke Shaw. And I think that tells you all you need to know. Declan Rice, I don't see the hype with this guy. He's terrible in defense. Can't progress forward. He's decent at breaking up play. I mean, he was at fault for the only Dutch goal. So I don't know. He's not my kind of player, and I don't think he's looked great this tournament. And anytime he's come up against opposition that is looking like they could do something against him, he kind of wilts under the pressure. I mean, it's an Arsenal thing, I guess, but yeah, it's just not impressive. Kobe Mainoo has impressed me. I think he's looked great. I mean, he's 18, 19, so he looks great, and credit to him stepping into a very big game like this as an 18 or 19-year-old. And then he did the same in the quarterfinal as well, stepping into those two games and really he looked like the 100 million pound player, not Declan Rice. I would say Kobe Mainoo looked like the 100 million pound player. Looking at Phil Foden, I thought he had a good first half. That's about it. He totally shut down in the second half. He looked good in the first, was a bit unlucky to hit the post at one point. But yeah, just didn't look great come the second. Jude Bellingham, I think, has had an extremely underwhelming tournament. I know everybody remembers the goal against Serbia and, of course, the bicycle kick against Slovakia. And I'm sure if England win this tournament, he'll be given player of the tournament to really pad that narrative that the game is trying to run with, of making him one of the all-time greats as he's 20 years old. So they're really trying to push that narrative, I feel. And he hasn't looked great. I don't rate him as highly as most people do. And once again here, he was just such a non-factor. And I think, once again, it's such a disgrace that this guy gets to choose when he gets to be suspended instead of just being suspended. So, yeah, not a massive fan, not a fan of his PR. Just not the... He is a good player, don't get me wrong. And I'm talking from a place of watching a team get robbed. So I am a little bit heated over that. I mean, I'm not Dutch, so I probably shouldn't be heated, but I just hate to see teams get absolutely robbed like that. So this may be coming across as extremely harsh, but yeah. And then look at Harry Kane. He gets a penalty after he whined and moaned to get it, and then he scores it. So it was a very nice penalty. Fair play to him. But yeah, once again, just not a great tournament. I mean, he's got 3 goals though, so that's what matters. And yeah, just not a great tournament from him, but they find themselves in the final. And I mean, credit to Gareth Southgate, not his biggest fan, but his substitutions did work. I thought Luke Shaw looked a lot more comfortable on that left flank than Kieran Trippier. And then, of course, Cole Palmer and Ollie Watkins made the headlines as they linked up for that final goal in the dying minutes of the game. It was a great ball by Palmer, and that trademark Watkins, like, quick running behind, turn, shoot. It's a great finish, in all fairness. Like, I haven't praised England a lot this tournament, and definitely not this episode, but it is a great finish from Ollie Watkins, and I am happy to see a guy like Ollie Watkins get his moment. I thought he was great during the Premier League season, and he's basically been pretty much a non-factor this entire tournament for England. So to see him kind of get his moment in one of the biggest moments of the tournament, I think it's great. And then, once we kind of hit that 90 minutes after they had scored to make it 2-1, Southgate quickly brings on Conor Gallagher and Ezri Konsa. 2 very smart changes as 2 guys to kind of help you see out the game, knowing that the Dutch are going to be really pushing for it now. Speaking of the Dutch, let's get into the guys that I thought were blatantly robbed. They should have been playing extra time. They were not. So, I mean, you lose it, fair enough, but I don't think it was a fair fight. And I think it shows, like I said, with that penalty, any 50-50 went England's way. Anytime an England player went down, it was immediately called. Dutch player would go down. I mean, there was a point in the game where the referee waged advantage for the Dutch, and then there was no advantage, and then the game just kept going. Because, I guess. But yeah, I think they would feel extremely hard done by. And I mean, you look at Virgil van Dijk, and after the match, he essentially calls out the referee, saying, "Well, he basically went right down the tunnel at the end of the game. I think that tells you what you need to know." And he's not wrong. It really does. And yeah, just really feel for them because, hey, if they had lost 2-1 and it was fair, then fair enough. But they lost 2-1, and the referee really, really played a part in that. So yeah, just really, really tough for them, I think. And I feel bad for those supporters that made that trip to see their team kind of get just screwed over, really bluntly. And I don't know. I hate seeing that. I don't like it. So that's probably why this has come across as a pretty passionate rant. But yeah, I just don't like to see that stuff. But we'll try to do a little bit of a player breakdown. I thought the goalkeeper wasn't a whole ton he could have done for that Watkins goal, and then the penalty is the penalty. So I don't really blame him for either goal. Denzel Dumfries, I don't even blame him for the penalty, really. It never in a million years is a penalty. He gets unlucky later on when he hits the crossbar off of a corner. Maybe it just wasn't his day, I don't know. He pissed off someone, I guess. But yeah, I mean, he does have a great goal line clearance on Phil Foden. So that was really probably his bright spot of the match. I don't think he was bad, just the man that was just extremely unlucky. Nathan Ake, I thought he had a phenomenal tournament. Another one of those City players that really shows that he can play outside the City system. Sorry, just a running joke. Any episode I talk about a City player. Him and Roger have really defeated those claims, I guess. Some guys didn't, but those two, and Akanji did. Any other City player really didn't. Virgil van Dijk and De Vrij, once again, I thought they were solid at the back. Weren't great, but I thought they were pretty solid. I think De Vrij is a little bit culpable on that second goal. He gives Watkins a bit too much space, but that's such a hard thing to defend against when he kind of quickly runs in behind you, and then you kind of got to stay close to him. But you can't stay too close because if you do and touch him, he's probably going to go down and you'll concede a penalty. It's a really tough thing to defend against. Their midfield's Renders, and Schotten? I'm so sorry, I'm saying your name wrong 100%. I thought they were good in the center of the park. They helped control the Dutch kind of breaking from defense to attack anytime they tried to. So I thought they looked solid. It wasn't either of their best outings of the tournament, but they looked solid enough. Malin, after some very big moments in the tournament, he kind of didn't do a whole ton this game. I mean, he really had to readjust, starting to play center forward after Depay went off, and then at halftime he was pulled off entirely. So never really given a chance to get into the game, I thought. And yeah, just a pretty not much to talk about kind of performance. And another man not much to talk about, sadly, is Cody Gakpo. I thought one of the players of the tournament to this point. Wasn't really as involved as he would have liked. Anytime he was involved, credit to him, he looked like something was going to happen. But yeah, just not super involved. Xavi Simons, though, great goal. I thought this was probably his best performance of the tournament. Was really linking defense to attack as well, really trying to press that England mid to defense. And then, yeah, I mean, that goal it's a great strike. It dispossesses Rice easily, and then just powerful shot into the back of the net. And sadly, it wasn't enough on the day, but it was a great goal. Memphis Depay, of course, pretty much sums up his tournament. Not great, and then he goes off in the 35th minute, and his tournament's over. And that's it, really. I mean, yeah, just not a great tournament. Not much to talk about for him on the day, but sometimes just not your tournament. Ask the French, I guess. But that kind of concludes the little breakdowns that I've done, and we're gonna be looking forward to the final. Of course, we'll be doing a recap of that once that game has been played. It'll be very interesting to see. I think, once again, as I've said, best team in the tournament, and really just a lackluster England meeting up in the final. But on the day, it's anyone's game, so you never know what's going to happen. I think it's kind of hard to choose a winner, really, because, like I said, Spain's the best in the tournament, but not always does the best team win. And England have kind of found their way into this final despite really not playing well, not looking inspiring, and really just a couple moments of magic throughout the tournament have really gotten them to this point. So I think it's a really hard one to predict. If I was to predict, that's a tough one. I would probably back Spain, but really to me it's a flip a coin type thing. So we'll see what happens on July 14th. And yeah, I'll, of course, like I said, we'll be covering that. And until then, check any of my socials at Official Sam Little on Instagram, and from there you can kind of find the rest. Check any of my socials for any updates pertaining to upcoming episodes. Some exciting episodes coming up as these international tournaments kind of close. Canada's final game will be played today, the day I'm recording this, will be played, and this will be their final game of the Copa, so I've got another episode for them to cover, and then, of course, the Euro final, we'll, of course, be covering that. So, and then after that, we'll see what happens. We'll see how I'll be filling the time until the season starts, so we'll see what happens. So that's why it's important to follow me over there. Keep checking the space. Subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, thank you so much for listening if you have this far. And yeah, until next time, cheers, everyone.
And that was your Maple Footy podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Check my socials for any and all future updates at Official Sam Little on Instagram, where I am most active. And until next time, live, laugh, little.